Welcome to Breaking the Silence. I don't know how many shows we've done at this point. It's been well over a year. We've done quite a few, but I want to start off by first thanking all of you in chat, all of you watching, because you're amazing. And we really appreciate your participation in this community. It's very important to us, and I know it's important to all of you too to participate in this community. I see we have new people from the UK. There's people from all over the world, and we really appreciate you being here. Mary and I have worked very hard on this channel, and we're keeping it real and not something that is commercial, if you know what I'm saying. That's not what we're about. I highly recommend that you watch this short film I posted in community. It was Coming Together of the Tribe. It's also called You Are Not Alone. And I mean to tell you, when Mary came across that last night on YouTube and I watched it, my jaw dropped, because it's exactly what I've been saying to all of you. It's exactly what many of you have been saying in your shows you've done with us, in the videos, the films, the episodes, about why this is happening, at least for some of us, and the agreement we made. So I really, really think you should watch that. Another thing I want to bring up before I bring Susan on is Mary and I had dinner with Whitley last weekend, and Mark Sims, and it was brought up that Mary was not getting secret stories, and Mary was curious, asking Whitley, because he has a brother who's a lawyer, Richard, and he's great. Love Richard. And wanted to know what was legal and what isn't legal to do. And then I said, yeah, as an example, like, let's say we just, took your I'm already laughing, your communion letters. It took me a minute there, and started reading those on the air. And he said, well, I'd sue you right away. Then he said, no, if you want to do that, you can do that. And Mary and I just sort of looked at each other, and he gave us permission to do the communion letters as a series of podcast style shows read by Mary, but illustrated and animated and music put to as a film by yours truly. And thank you, Earl Grey. So Mary and I are very excited about that. Whitley and I have been friends for well over 30 years. And, I never would have even thought to ask him that, but he just said, no, you can do it. And if YouTube gives you any trouble, tell him to talk to me. Susan, you're here.
Hey, I'm here. That's some
Welcome.
exciting news there, Steve. Exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't know how many people here have read the communion letters, but and we were going to dedicate the shows to her and Whitley Strieber. Ann and I were friends, and I really loved her. And she is an amazing person. I wish you all could have got to know her. She was just incredible. But it was her idea, basically, to do the communion letters, because they had so many letters coming in, thousands and thousands of them. By 1988 or so, they were flooded, and took the time to go through them, pull out the ones she thought would work best in a book, and did that book. And when I finally read it, I was just, it's a jaw dropper. It's really something, and it holds up today. Absolutely. So how are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
We've
No
had
more
lots of
visitors.
rain out here. Today's a sunny day. So
Today's a sunny day here too.
yay,
Yeah.
finally.
It finally, well, we really needed it. I don't know about you
We
guys,
did
but
too.
yeah, and hopefully it'll keep any more fires from happening for a while, which would be great. Because if you threw an ember out the window now, all it'll do is sizzle and go out.
Yes.
So, Earl, geez, thank you, Earl
Woohoo.
Gray Anderson.
I wanted to check in on chat, but I can't because I'm on my iPad. But I'm watching comments on the television, and I wanted to say hello to everybody because I'm very aware of they're all out there.
Yeah,
and
they certainly
I appreciate them being here.
We're all out there.
Yeah.
Sorry. I've been around Whitley too much. He makes the greatest jokes. I'll be, going through the day and I'll be like, oh God, that's sort of depressing. And then I'll see his face and I'll see the joke he told me recently, and I just bust into laughter. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good thing. So,
Hmm.
so, what did you think of your show?
It was fabulous, and I've watched it a few times myself. And a few things I know that I've left out.
We can have
Uh,
you back.
yeah, well, a few things I can just talk about while I'm here. I mean,
Okay.
it's
You,
nothing
you, you,
specific. It's just a few things that I do know. I tried to answer pretty much all the mail that came in on YouTube because that's the only one that I saw.
Dennis, my goodness. Sorry to interrupt you, Susan.
Yay!
The people who don't know our channel get so upset with me when I do that, but continue,
Oh no,
please.
I like the bell. I miss the bell when you
Okay.
don't have it, so I dig the bell.
Well, they don't, but
No,
you know, that was
well,
very sweet of you, Dennis.
I
Thank
tried
you.
to answer a lot of people and comment, and what I noticed was a lot of people commented about how I must have suffered all these years, and it went on and on. And I
They
wanted
tend to do
everybody
that.
to know that I have not suffered all these years at all. It's funny, when it happened, I was used to odd things happening, but it did blow my mind. And then I kept it in check
Hmm.
because I don't know, it was just impossible to talk about. Couldn't have it in my current life. And it would slip out occasionally, but most of the time it just became my pet friend that I kept hidden that nobody could see. Um, it, because I didn't want my life to be miserable or my life of my family. And we traveled a lot, and the thought of having the government or scientists or doctors or people knowing that, that my kids had a weird mother would have been awful. So I did just keep that in check, but it didn't mean that I was miserable at all. I
Yeah.
had a great life, a happy life. And the only time that I was miserable was around 2013 when I got divorced. And then after hypnosis, when I came forward with this and then had hypnosis, all that was gone too. So I'm pretty happy, and I've always been happy in here, always. So this was just something that happened. It was an event. It didn't make me totally who I am. Still had a great life.
And
Yeah.
if you had to do it over again, would you
Oh,
still
yeah.
still have the experience?
Oh,
Can you
yeah. The
can
fact
you tell us why? I mean, I know why, and I know why I feel that way, but share it
it's
with the
just a
folks here.
connection that you don't get on Earth. I don't know if you
No,
say that.
no, you don't.
And
Well, we do
I mean, like,
here.
you can. I'm sure
Yes.
that you can because I've actually had that, but the usual isn't that. But I think I wouldn't do it again because it left me with such a beautiful. mm, I don't know what you'd call that. The way I see things is always out of the box and so different. And
Yes.
then that little above thing where you see down and you see all the ripples, that's just been
Mhm.
the biggest gift on the planet.
How about touching the
The
gray?
what?
How about touching the gray
That's
what
still
he or
kind of
she and what
that's
he or
still
she
kind of
said to you?
weird. That's still very weird.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, but what the being said back to you was so true and
It
so
was, well, it was
amazing.
almost like jokes on you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
because
it
you don't
wasn't
get
an
it, or
argument that, no, no, ooh. It wasn't, I don't even think that those words came out. It's just that's what I got in my head. I don't think the words are specific. The translation's probably a little different, but I instantly knew it was kind of like oh, that's kind of funny. She doesn't like the way I look, but we're the same. So
I
yeah.
know, and I just get this overwhelming feeling that they know we're in a state of amnesia. We have been since the day we were born, but that
Yeah.
slowly but surely, we're starting to remember again.
Yeah. And then
That's why
once
we're
you
all coming
do,
together the way we are.
well, it's so weird because you remember that you know that you've always known. I mean, it is a conscious memory. It's just tucked away, but it's just like a seed, and then you water it a little bit, and then boom, once it starts growing, there's no stopping it. It just is the time to come forward, and you just know that you have to do it. And it's funny, after you did the film,
Mm-hmm.
I've just been so light and lifted and feel like my mission is complete as far as wanting to tell it how it happened. It only happened one way. It's the exact same way always. But once you let somebody else tell it, it gets changed. And I've seen that happen so many times. I didn't want that to happen. I saw it happen to Travis Walton. I've seen it happen to so many other people. And you just kept it so pure because it was my words, and you showed it. And just I'm so appreciative. I can't even tell you how much it's helped. It's just been like another layer that onion.
And I think at this point, over 30,000 people have seen it. 30,000 people that didn't know
Yeah.
about it before,
And I
and
don't even know if my family still knows, but I think they're getting ready to. So, and it, I'll find out soon. I'm sure.
yeah, well, a lot of people are saying now that it's this is the best time to talk about this stuff because
Hmm.
there's been so much attention drawn to the sky recently that people are seeing things that they really didn't believe in, and they've been seeing it and putting it on camera with their, and they're really changing quick.
Right.
You got a question there?
How many years after the event did you realize what had really happened? Oh, I knew instantly. When I woke up at the table at the diner, I knew what had happened. Plus some, the falling from the sky and all of that. And then I had to just kind of absorb it in really tiny, small amounts. So as was allowing, after we got back on the road and had all that sleep in that weird hotel, then I we had gone to Lake Dillon in Colorado, and it gave us 3 days. And during that 3 days, we just kind of hiked around, which you don't have to talk a lot when you hike. Looked at gold mines and talked about history. It was just very hard to talk about the trip or what had happened or how we were feeling, just all of it. But I knew from that day on, and every day, it's like a calendar in my mind of how each day got progressively worse until I had the episode in North Carolina. And then I've always known what happened. It's the reason I had the hypnosis was just to assure me that that had happened. Um, and it did. So I already, it was like, it's like writing a book and then writing a book of the facts and then getting amnesia and then going back to it. That's exactly how it was. It's so odd. It's so odd that when I describe what happened from the time the moon disappeared in the stars, I was thinking the other day, how do you describe what happens in your head? You know how we all talk about the time lapse, or that you're very aware of the oddness around you, like people
Yeah,
being sick,
it happened. Something happened that's just
slow
out of the
mo
norm.
kind of thing, and
Hmm.
it's just like it's like the reality in your head is slower than the reality of what's going on outside. Because if the reality was going on outside, other people would definitely notice.
Hmm.
So it's in here, but it's like a time slip. I don't even know how to explain it, but you're very aware of that. And I remember how odd that was too, almost to the point that I don't think I ever want to feel that again because I didn't like it. It was kind of like out of control, and I'm
Yeah,
trying to grasp to
you're
get control.
disassociated with your own environment, which you're comfortable with and used to, but
Yeah,
time can be stopped.
yeah,
It can
yeah.
be controlled,
And it's
and they're
funny. I
good
think
at
back
it.
in the '80s when we were younger, maybe we liked those qualities. We liked
Yeah.
those things, but but now I don't think I would enjoy that. I think about it in not a gross way, but I'm very aware of how different it was, and I don't like the being in slow mo thing. I like the fast mo, not the slow mo. So,
Did you
um,
did you notice that there were some people who, and I've seen this before in other cases, sort of complained about the fact that you had radiation sickness and you had
not
symptoms of it in that. And the thing that people need to understand is that
yeah,
there are many different um, I won't say races, but different life forms, different non-human intelligence visiting the planet. I'm pretty damn sure of that.
yeah,
And not all of them are going to have all the same technology. And also, that was back in 1978. And I do know back then that there were more cases of radiation exposure with contact
yeah.
with the Greys back then. And we don't know what procedures they may or may not have done to you. Um, Certainly the radiation you were exposed to didn't have any long lasting effects or contribute to any future cancers or any of those things. But
Well, I gotta
people,
say, I'll
they
have to
need to know this
correct you
stuff
there.
happens.
Yeah, I do have to correct you there because I've had a really bad time with the after effects of the radiation.
You did, yeah.
Yes, I
And
have.
how?
But
And
and it's so odd because I did remember how somebody wrote and said, "How does she know it was radiation burns if she never
yes,
the doctor?" Well, I had just come out of the military, and you learn about that stuff heavily when you're going in. And I knew what it looked like, and even though I hadn't seen it on anyone else, it was like nothing else that anybody has had.
yeah.
And the effects instantly, you were just so sick, and it just got progressively sicker.
Did
And
you were you
and
nauseated,
oh, the nausea, my skin felt like I was,
tired?
yeah, no hair on my arms. I still have zero hair on my arms. My eyebrows are pretty much gone, and they've always been. Oh, the exhaustion and the tiredness was undescribable, and that's why we went to that. We would have never just taken 3 days off at Dillon Lake. It's just not a place there's anything to do other than
Right.
sleep and eat good food. And it wasn't the time of year. It was hot. It wasn't the time of year to ski or anything. So that kind of
And,
explains that. And plus, we felt like we needed to heal up before we went to see the next people, which was only a day or two away in Indiana and Chicago. And we had to look like something other than burned desert rats because that's how we looked and that's how we felt.
yeah.
So, and the other thing too was, how am I going to explain that without
Yeah.
every red flag
Sure.
to just walk in looking like that into a hospital? They would have known instantly it was radiation burns. And then how do you explain
Sure.
that?
And when you told them how, what was they immediately are going to ask you, what were you exposed to? What's the cause? And if you said, well, gee, I don't know, it just sort of happened, they're not going to believe you.
Yeah,
And if you
jackrabbits in
tell
the
them what
road.
really happened,
Yeah, waking
they're
up
going
in
to
a
put you in the
tiger.
psych ward and know that
Psych
you're
ward.
covering something up, that you were doing something you shouldn't be doing. They'd never
Yes.
accept that you had that experience.
And they would have separated Karen and I. And to me, that was just like almost like if we would have gotten separated because of that, I can't imagine how many things could have gone wrong so fast.
Sure. And they might, and some of the doctors I know are in cahoots with our wonderful government, and who knows what they might have reported. I mean, I have
Well,
been,
especially in Grand Junction, Colorado. I think Colorado, there's all kinds of things going on there. And we were just total strangers in the town, showing up at a restaurant looking like that,
mhm,
have no clue how we got there. There was no explaining it. We couldn't even explain to each other. How are we going to explain to somebody else? And what I'm going to say, help us remember? Because I remembered falling out of the sky. And there was no way that was going to be told to anybody. And I think that is where I got the radiation burns because I remember when I was falling, it felt like the skin was peeling off of my bones, like it was melting. And I wonder, the burn was so bad, I wonder to this day if that's when I got burned. So, and 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 after all these years, I gotta say, it's just one of those collateral damages that people
yeah.
get. and there is no explanation. So there is no way I was going to tell because I still had to get a job when I got back to California, and I still had security clearance. There's so many things I could have done.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you
yeah,
know what happened with Terry Lovelace, so
yeah,
you didn't want a
yeah.
repeat of that
Oh, I have
because they do
seen and
know.
heard
They do
things.
know. There are
Yeah.
people on the inside in our military, in our government. They absolutely know about this stuff. They know more about it than they'll ever tell anybody, um, which is wrong. They should.
Well,
I'm
well,
tired of
here's
it.
see, it's going on right now, and
I know.
I laugh at all the whippersnappers that are flying the planes, and you've got all the pilots. But um, I was on a C-130 in the Navy
It's a
out
good
of Barbers
airplane.
Point, Hawaii, and I 3 times saw it off the wing, bright orange, almost like copper with the sun reflection. It was that bright orange. And I said, "Oh, what's that?" And nobody went to the window and looked. They just made eye contact, like don't talk about it. And then that made me more curious. So I went to another window and it was still there. And we don't talk about that. And so it was like, okay, so that's acceptable because things were going on in the plane. So okay, we don't talk about it right now. The second time it happened, pretty much the same reaction. The third time, the usual excuse for everything because I was the first woman on the flight line, and they said, "We'll transfer you if you continue to ask questions because we don't talk about it." And what is it?
Yeah, no,
So
that
that was,
no,
75,
no.
76,
You don't have the
77.
clearance for that.
Right. So
Thank you,
so it was
Lynn.
all just swept under the rug along with a whole pile of other stuff from the service. Not that I didn't absolutely love my time in service, I did. And I wasn't about to ruin it by showing up in a hospital and saying, "Oh, look what happened in the desert
Well, they would have been all over you.
with rabbits in
You would have
water."
been debriefed. You would have been asked in, and you would
And
have had a lot.
Karen, we would have been separated.
Yeah. Well, that's what they do with everybody
Yes.
in the military. I mean,
And
look
I
what they
knew
did to
it.
Terry Lovelace, and and that's not the only case. There's many cases,
Yep.
and often even in non-military cases, when people have experiences together, they end up being separated. We don't know
Yeah.
how, but they never want to talk to you again. This has happened to me,
Yep.
and they don't remember anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though someone else the next day that was with you heard them talk about it, and then 2 weeks later say, "Oh no, I don't know what you're talking about. I never said that,"
Yeah.
and they mean it. So how did that
Exactly.
happen? So, and then you're estranged for them the rest of your life.
Yes. And that's almost happened with Karen until I had that epiphany or whatever that was that whispered in your ear to look up that movie. And I looked it up. There was John Yost movie. It literally just brought it all back. It was almost like,
He's a fantastic filmmaker.
oh my gosh, he was just so amazing.
Yeah,
I would love to see it, what he would have
I
done
have not
between now
seen
and
that
then had he
film.
not become sick. I just think about him all the time.
Yeah, what was the name of the film again?
Alien Abduction Answers.
Wow. Um, because recently Mary and I saw a piece he did with Whitley about this little statue, this ancient statue that Mark Sims owns, that John did. And it
Hmm.
was the best. I told Whitley, I said, last weekend, I said, it's the best piece I've ever seen done with you
Is
ever.
that
The man
something
knew how
that
to
we can
light.
can we
The
see?
man knew how to light it, shoot it. He did everything right. What a fabulous filmmaker.
Is that somewhere that we can watch it?
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube.
Oh,
Um, it's one of his films. It's just a short piece with Whitley, but it was so good. It was must have been near the end of his life because Whitley doesn't look that much older today, so I'm assuming. But it's there. I don't know what it's called, but it's about this little statue.
oh wow.
And when you see the statue, you won't believe it.
Aw.
It's amazing. It has to do
John
with
wrote me
this.
a letter. He wrote me a letter before he passed, and he said, um, "I believe in you, and you've got a lot to say, and every you're going to have a lot of opportunities in the next coming years, and I want you to take every one." That's what he said. And I've been offered a few things, but I've turned most of them down because
You're
I'm
worried
not
about what they
sure and
do.
I'm not ready. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
I'm at a pause time, and I know that it's the perfect time for pause time.
We could make a feature film, a 90-minute film, hour and a half film. We'd have to hire actors and all that. But my fear would be, it's like, for instance, I don't have the money to put the money up myself. If
Right.
I did, I'd do it, because then you have total control. But you
Yeah.
have to get money from an outside source. And then you give them the script and it's absolutely exact to your story.
Right.
That's what we do. And then
Yeah.
they start tearing out pages and saying, well, you need to
Yeah.
make this more eye popping here. And I don't want to see grays that look like that. You need to make them look scarier. And how about we have her screaming on the table and then
Right.
certain things in and or otherwise we don't have a movie. I'm
Yeah.
not going to give you the money.
And there was no screaming, so
And
yeah, that
I've
would
been
upset
there.
me.
I've
That
been
would
there.
upset me.
I've been there and I gave him the middle finger and I walked out.
Hmm.
And one time that I did it, it got me in a lot of trouble because there were a lot of other people involved, but they wanted to ruin my script and turn it into this horrible thing. And of course, I got told, yeah, but if you do this, you'll make all that money and then you can do whatever you want.
Whoa.
No. So just sell out, go against your moral compass and just sell out for the dollar and then you can do what you want later. No, no. I'd rather
Later.
I'd rather
Right.
not. So I walked away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I appreciate you letting me tell it just like it was, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate.
I really appreciate that you came to us and allowed us to do it because when I went to Earl's local UFON meeting, he has great meetings, he has great guests,
He
and
does.
so we went and then I heard he talked about this case, and I saw the whole thing in my mind and said, oh, I want to do that one before somebody else gets to it and does all the wrong things with it. So
It was the
and that
Jackrabbit,
happens. So
I'm
thank you
sure.
very much, and thank you, Earl.
Oh,
So you said you had other things you wanted to share with us that weren't in the film. We heard one on the C-130 or Jolly Green Giant, whatever you want to call it, and
yeah. Well, it was about during the surgery when they took my appendix out.
oh,
And he didn't just find that it was a scar and that my ovary was missing, but he found that um, inside the appendix that had already burst after he had told me about it had been burst and sealed closed, that it there was a sack of, what did he call it, pellets, sack of pellets inside your appendix. And of course that was, to me, was make me want to jump up in the bed and scream, what, that, like,
what
ew,
did they
that's
make out of
gross.
that?
Well, he said, I've never seen anything like that. That was the part
Yeah,
that
I,
was
I would
so
imagine not.
curious. Yeah, and I went, what do you mean pellets? And he said, pellets like the size of BB pellets. And I said, well, what are they? What are they? And he said, I don't know what that is. And he came up with a couple of ideas. He said, but it had something to do with the rupture probably in your system, just trying to fight it with however you've dealt with this without not knowing that, you've had surgery, but you've had surgery.
Right.
So that was the thing that was so odd. And then I wonder to this day, if was was that my implant? Is that what kept me from dying? Like, what were
Hmm.
those? What is a sack of pellets?
Yeah, I had a
Yeah.
burst appendicitis, and I got to live with it for 3 days before it turned to peritonitis. Because when it happened, I knew I knew that I had an appendix problem, and we went to the ER on Friday night, really late, and this doctor told me, I'm not a doctor, don't tell me what you have. And they took an X-ray and said, you're fine, just imagist and go home. And I knew, but I
Wow.
did feel better because the damn thing burst. But by Monday,
Wow.
after having a nice weekend, I was dying. They got me in just in the nick of time. And so what I know about burst appendicitis is they don't fix them, they don't repair them, and they don't stitch them up, and they take them out. And besides,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And
exactly.
they don't attach my fallopian tube to the incision.
No.
That is
So
just the wildest thing.
so
That's
somebody must have said something to somebody, because those doctors have never seen anything like that, and they had no explanation for it. But yet
exactly.
nothing came out of it. You never heard a thing again.
No, like always, and then I say, well, what do you do with that? And he said, everything's just sent out. Well, I'm sure they sent it out back in the 70s. Who knows what they were looking for, cancer or something like that. But nothing ever came back because I waited and waited and waited. When you go back afterwards and talk to your doctor, it was like, so did anything come of that? And he was like, no, nothing. I just thought it was so odd because I wanted to shake him, like, tell me, something. What was that? Because that's just a foreign object, and I'm surprised maybe my body did react to it. Maybe that's part of why I was so sick. So it's just something I know I'll never know. But I know I had the ovary 3 months before I got out of the service, so that was just a couple months
That was just
before.
gone.
Yeah, it was just gone. And then
No.
somehow I've had surgery. So
Yeah. Well, the thing is that when people when things are discovered in that, people like that, like for instance, they know you had a child in you and now it's no longer there, they get very suspicious. But you had no entry scars at all,
no,
so
yeah.
they couldn't say you're not telling us the truth, and you're not telling us something, because it's not like you could have done surgery on yourself, and if you had, there would have been evidence of it,
Yeah,
and so
laser surgery.
they had
Laser
nothing.
did. Yeah.
Laser surgery in 1978.
Yeah. That's what was just so stunned. He was so stunned. You could see
We
him kind of working it out in his mind. He'd kind of giggle and just go, yeah, I've just never seen anything like this. So
Laser
that was the
surgery.
conversation.
So Dennis could probably tell us. Uh, we didn't have lasers to do surgery with that I know of in
It was probably
1978.
the 80s until they started because they weren't using it. And I had that done in 89 and they weren't using it then
Yeah.
for that procedure. Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
on other stuff, but not that one. Because when he said high heat cauterization, I thought, oh my God, it's a laser. What are they talking about? Yeah, not in
Yeah. I
common
mean,
use then.
lasers were just, they weren't there yet. They really weren't.
Yeah, right.
So now we can vaporize people.
Yeah.
I can think of a few people I'd like to vaporize, but I won't go there. Uh,
Me too.
It's called a phaser. I happen to have one right here. I've been trying to figure out for years how to get this thing to actually work.
Oh, looks like some kind of hot glue gun.
Yeah. No, that's full
Wow.
on, and that's the real thing right there.
I thought one of the most hilarious message that was left on the film was someone said, I see part of Spock's face back behind Susan. And I
Oh,
wanted to write, and I didn't write it, but I wanted to say, well, I actually felt something touching my hand, and when I turned around, it was the thing
yeah.
that
Oh, the
the
thing. Yeah.
hand. It was
Yeah.
sitting right behind me, and there was something touching my hair. I turned around, it was like, ah! It was so funny. That was a moment that I don't think I shared with you, but it was hilarious that the hand was sitting
Oh,
right there,
wow.
right at my back. So I just thought, was it reaching up, and only in your studio might that happen?
Yeah. A lot of people don't get it, and they don't realize that I actually worked on Star Trek, and that I did Leonard
There it
Nimoy's
is.
did
That's
Leonard
it. That's
Nimoy's
exactly what.
ears for Star Trek. So, Star Trek the motion picture,
And I
and
didn't even notice it when I
I,
sat down. So to
I
turn around
always
and
loved
see,
Leonard.
yes,
Um, his character predominantly.
yes. I
Leonard
had
was
such a fun day that
Leonard was kind of scary, to be around.
time.
At least when I was that young, and doing his ears for Star Trek, and here was some fictional character that I greatly admired, and here he is. It's like
Yeah.
spooky times, wonderful times.
Yeah.
So
Well, it was
that's
wonderful.
so.
I
If
really
you're
enjoyed
wondering,
the
that's
studio.
why that my good friend Steve Dix did that drawing for me. So he's a great
Oh,
artist.
yeah. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I left out. Um, well, it's kind of funny that they've been talking about an egg recently. But
Yeah,
years ago, I drew that blue egg that I saw out in the Ansabaraga Desert, and that's one of the things that why watching John's movie, he was in the Ansabaraga Desert when he got reactivated, and he was holding up a glass and doing a cheers, a toast to someone, and through the glass he saw a bright light, and when he lowered the glass to look at it, was a UFO.
you're talking
And it
about John
was,
Yost.
yes, and it was
Yeah,
so odd because that's exactly where I had seen the egg and drawn it years before that, with the little blue thing shooting out the front of it. And that's the night that we were camping out there and I lost my shoe and we found it half a mile away.
you
So,
know
um,
the
and I remember coming down that night also. I was in the Jeep and the guys were all on the ground around me and I saw the three fires and all of them. And I must have gone back into the Jeep. I don't remember specifically doing that, but I was minus a shoe the next morning, meaning I had
huh.
to have been up. Is why else would I have had my shoes on? I was either up or I was sleeping with them on, which wouldn't be that unusual. So it's all those little things the movie did. It just almost like it gave me permission to finally talk about it.
And the name again, and I want Mary to write it down because I'd like to watch it because there's you hear about people doing documentaries and UFOs and this subject all the time, but when I saw what he did with Whitley, I said, no, this guy is special. He's
Oh,
a real
he is, yeah.
filmmaker. He doesn't do a
And he's
crummy
telling
job.
his own story. So it is, I mean, you get
Yeah,
the deep rawness and then it's called Alien Abduction Answers. I think it's
answers.
on
You
Tubi.
write that down, Mary, please.
It's on everything.
Yeah, I'm sure it's on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Or Netflix or
Tubi,
one of them.
maybe YouTube. Yeah, I would guess. I think it's
Now,
on.
the egg shape is interesting because this was a case that happened in France back in the 50s, I believe. And
Mm-hmm.
Michael Linderman, who I used to know, and I did illustrations for. He was a UFO investigator, and this is based rather accurately. This painting I did on this man in the heather. I think it was a heather field. And what he saw, and somebody here hopefully will remind me what case this was, but there you have an egg-shaped craft, and yet he saw little grays outside of it. So,
Right.
so they are not uncommon. Um, and I don't know how big that craft was. What's the name of the whistleblower? It's Jake.
Yeah.
Jake. What's his
Barber.
last? Barber. That's right. I was going to
Yeah.
say
When you
Barber. I
talked
wasn't
about the
sure it's
egg,
right.
I thought, well, I've seen the egg.
Yeah.
I've seen it above and shoot out the little things. That was, but remember, that was in March or April of 78, before this happened in the desert in September of 78.
Did you hear
So
what he had to say about his feelings towards the whole thing? It was wonderful.
it's kind of funny because I had the doubt, I was on the fence watching it. And then when I saw his facial features change and he had this other kind of spark shine going on,
Yeah, you
I
really see
knew
it.
that
Yeah.
he had that connection because there are no words to explain it. And he had to think deep and he pulled from deep and he still didn't have a perfect word. He's had the contact. You just can tell. However,
Yeah.
he had it, you are so aware of it's way bigger than anything that you know. There's the onychological shock
Right.
happens at that moment, but then it happens bigger once you calm down and have a quiet moment to really process it. Then it comes over you. And it's funny because when Judy asked the question a while ago, I got the oncologic shock after 2 or 3 days afterwards. It took me that long to not to just remember it all, but to put it all together as to oh, this is the this is how it all happened in this order. It took a couple of days to get that because you don't allow yourself that. That's the part that's crazy. So you check it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you check yourself. When you say check yourself, that's you're checking yourself. And we all develop a place to keep those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that when I watched John's movie, it all came out at once. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah.
No, because the emotions are there,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah. When I saw Mario Woods talk for the first time before we met and became friends, when he was describing
Mm-hmm.
his contact
Yeah.
when they sent him off the base, off the missile site to go investigate,
Yep.
and when he was in that moment and he saw them approaching and everything, uh,
And he was devoted to
emotionally,
his too.
it got me.
Yes. It's funny. I've wanted to meet him for years because when he told it the first time I ever saw it, it made so much sense to me. I could feel him feeling
Oh,
it.
yeah,
He
you
was
whoa,
reliving, and he still does.
yeah.
I'm hoping at one of these shows. I don't know if he's going to be at Contact in the Desert, but if he's going to, I'm going, and I hope to get to meet him. He's on my list.
Well, he's one of the people that's is going to do one of the episodes, and because he's where he's at and can't get out here easily, and we can't afford to bring him out here, he's bought some camera equipment, sound equipment, and he is going to film himself, and then I'm going to do my
Yay!
magic and replicate what happened to him. So
We were in at the same time, and it surprises me how much alike it happened.
yeah, well, so was Terry Lovelace around the same time, correct?
Yep, yep, yeah.
And of course,
And of course, we didn't know about each other at all back then.
right.
We
And
didn't
none of
have.
you were reading UFO books or paying
Yeah,
attention to any of that
it's when
stuff.
Bud Hopkins came around, and then Whitley came around, and I actually wrote Whitley a letter from that address in the book, and Bud Hopkins also. But it's
Right.
funny, years later, I found the letter that I had written to Bud that I never mailed it. I had stashed it in my Bible. That must have been a safe place of all
Huh.
things, but nobody would read it, or it
Yeah.
was years and years old. And in my old handwriting and yellowed, and so I never mailed it. But the feeling and the uh, just non-understanding, I need some help with, you could feel it when you read the letter. So
Right.
yeah.
So you never got a chance to meet him.
No.
That's Nova coming in and out of the studio here.
Hi, Nova.
She gets very nervous.
She laid on my feet when I was doing the film. It was
Yeah, I
very
know. When you saw the
calming.
picture, she's laying right at your feet. The
It was
dogs are very,
calming.
very comforting, grounding creatures.
Yeah.
I did have the opportunity, thanks to Yvonne Smith, to spend some quality time with Bud, and I really liked him.
Yeah.
He was a very sweet guy.
And I want to meet Deb Cobble. I still haven't met her, but I think somewhere hopefully we'll get to meet. We'll cross paths, and because she was my hero back then, she just didn't use her name, the same name.
Mm.
Yeah.
Did you ever get a chance to see the UFO incident about Barney and Betty Hill that Universal did back in the late 70s?
Oh, I'm sure I could, anything I could grab onto, I would
Yeah,
watch it. And it's
yeah,
funny, I used to go to Barnes and Noble, pretty much anywhere we lived when the Barnes and Noble opened. I liked it because all their tables, all the new books were right out in the front aisle when you walked in.
yeah,
And I'll never forget, not expecting it. There is Whitley's book. Boom!
yeah.
The whole aisle was full of it. And I didn't have to scurry off to the hidden section of the bookstore so nobody would see me because I was in PTA. So I'm scurrying off to the secret part, where they talk about UFOs and getting the books and then going over to the corner. And sometimes I would have a friend with me and they have the chairs that are front and back like this so that when you sit you can converse with your book.
Mm.
And I would always hide Whitley's book
Yeah.
inside a magazine or something else so
Yep.
that nobody saw me reading that book. And then when I finally got the guts to buy it, took it home, and I remember hiding it in my underwear drawer, my lingerie drawer, knowing it would be safe in there. And the next day on the coffee table at the house,
Yeah.
kids found it, and it's like, hey, what's this?
Oh, great.
So, you know,
Yeah, Whitley was a big troublemaker. He just he got us all, and he knows it. And but really, we have a lot to thank him for because I really that book has brought us all together.
it really just lit up the world, and all of us kind
Yep.
of knew each other, started finding each other through it. I think it helped a lot.
Yep.
And
And
I
he's
remember when people would come over or somebody would mention it and want to talk about it, I would send that book home with them and I'd buy another one. I
right.
probably sent away 3 or 4 books just with curious people because I didn't want them to leave empty handed because they were curious.
Right.
Nor could I sit and really talk about it in depth because I just didn't want to share all that. I didn't know how I felt about it yet,
Right.
much less the spoken word is very strong. And once it comes out your mouth, you just better watch sometimes. So I knew not to, let it out other than just right in my environment. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That I never had that luck with that book. People said, people that the friends and family at the time were like, "That's all garbage. You don't really believe that stuff, do you?"
Oh, right.
And you just
But
sort of look at them, and your mouth starts to open, and you just say, "No, it's
it was just totally sci fi.
yeah, it's futile. They'll
Stuff for
never
the
get it."
comic books. Yeah, all of that.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, there was a comic book too. It was called Beyond Communion Comics by
Hmm.
Caliber, and that's one of the things that Mary and I have been talking about, and so we're gonna do one comic book. Um, Whitley's were really good. They didn't let me do the inside art, only the outside art, and I think that was a mistake. But they only got to 4 issues, and then they folded up. I think today they go over better, but basically, you take cases and you illustrate them, and you make them beautifully visual, and it's something nice to have in your collection. And so,
Yeah.
half the people in the poll wanted it, half the people didn't. 50-50. There are
Yeah.
people who would think this has nothing to do with the subject. Why would you do anything like that? It's classless. It's this, it's that. But I love comic and illustrated novels. I think it'd be another way of getting the information out. And besides, I'll enjoy doing the art. So we're going to try one.
Yeah.
So we haven't
Yeah.
decided which one yet, but we'll figure it out. So bunnies. I heard in
Bunnies.
the other room, bunnies,
Bunnies. Oh,
buns.
I got to say, it's one of the funny things that I don't think I told anybody this, but my friend Karen that was with me on that trip, all these years that we've come back together, must have been maybe 2 years ago. She called me and she's on a farm and she's making herself a farm, and she's been beekeeper and she does everything. She's just amazing, like Mother Earth. And she says, "Well, I couldn't help myself, but I bought giant bunnies, and now I'm raising giant bunnies." So she's got
Oh, God.
giant rabbits.
Well, they
They're
start
like
talking or
this big giant with huge floppy ears. I just thought that was hilarious after all these years
wow.
that she's drawn to big bunnies. Yeah.
Wow.
All those things.
Would anyone here like what you have Susan here? We have 10 minutes left. Would you like to ask her some questions? I'm sure you have some questions to ask her. Like What did the gray's skin feel like?
Mm, it felt like ours, except it was tighter. It
Huh.
was very tight, but it was also the density of like a dolphin, but it
Mm,
had marks on it, like a texture, like a human, like an elephant,
mm.
creases and cracks, and it was not smooth and slippery at all.
Yeah, up close they can be
Kind of
very,
like
very
foam
wrinkly,
rubber,
very
but
old looking.
when I touched it, it didn't wrinkle how like a human skin. If you were to push in, it would wrinkle as you go down a little bit. But this didn't do that.
And I don't recall them. Some people said that their touch is cold, but I don't ever seem to recall that. It didn't.
Mm-mm.
I think it was like ours. I mean, it just didn't. Oh, there's a question.
Sense of
Thank you,
humor.
Mark.
The only thing I remember about humor was, and I flea market gold. I remember your comment was beautiful, and I appreciate that. It
Yes,
was
we do
sweet.
appreciate you very
Yeah,
much.
I remember that. What was the question again? What did she just write? Oh, the humor. The only part that I caught that's humorous, and I'm a big laughter. Uh, was when
It's important.
I thought ew, and it was like no, not ew. So I kind of thought that was funny because to me that was, you don't know if you're in the presence of something human, something alien, or something robot like. You you're in such a float zone about your judgment of whatever that is.
Oh yeah, I mean, you have
Yeah,
you have a
there's no
non-human being
zone to
standing
say I'm
inches away
standing
from your
somewhere else.
face. You're going to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the smell was like stinky Parmesan cheese, like rotting Parmesan cheese and pissy baby diapers. That's all together. That's just how that's
That
why I was like, ew.
that's very interesting because it actually backs up a document that Whitley speaks about in his latest book that describes how the Greys excrete their waste
Yeah.
and how it's done, and the fact that they actually wear something over their entire body to keep that waste in.
Yeah.
Um, but they
Which
don't
I
always
guess is
wear it.
what you'd have to do.
They
You learn
sweat
how
it
to,
out. Yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah. And it
changes.
smells. And
It
yeah.
makes sense. I remember Michael P. Masters. I love watching him, and I love it when he talks about and he shows pictures of the progression of what we would have to be to time travel and to space travel and overtime. And it's exactly what we saw, the grays.
Hmm.
And it made sense of the different food that you would eat and the liquid and what it would
Yeah.
turn into. And it was just stinky. it,
Yeah.
it didn't turn off the experience. It was just a take note, like yuck. Because when I thought it was funny, because when I said or when I thought ew, and it corrected me, I thought I'm a vanilla girl, not stinky parmesan. We're the same. I was like,
No,
that's
because we smell too. We smell
yeah,
to them.
exactly.
We're yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely smell. We
And
just
at
don't
22, my
notice it.
ego was so different. Of course, I was a vanilla girl then too. So, it was almost like, nope, sorry, we're not smelling the same.
You have another question down there.
Okay,
Audrey.
so no contact. Um, I do see things in the sky, and sometimes I'm very aware that whatever it is aware of me also. Most of the time, not. But what I do really enjoy every day is what Dr. Gary Nolan calls it my extra human things.
Mhm.
I love noticing every single thing and hearing. I have an incredible hearing. I love amazing flavors, hearing everything go on as long as I don't get overwhelmed by it. If it's positive stuff like kids laughing and stuff like that, you could just flood me with that. What overwhelms me, and it's still part of the gift, I'm sure, is too many people talking, phones going off. because part of it is not the conversation on the phone. Sometimes it's crazy, but I can hear all the texts and I know what they're talking about. And it's one of the reasons I couldn't work in the mall. Years ago, I worked in a glass room in Virginia Beach in Lynn Haven Mall, all glass. And it was so overwhelming, I could not stay. I heard the escalator. I heard every hot dog and French fry and taco be ready. I heard every giggle, every phone going off. It was so, I'm way too sensitive, and I just knew I just couldn't, I just couldn't subject myself to that. It was that bad. So I've always preferred a quieter life, and um, I I think about things, I think deeper than a lot of people do, but not overthink them. It's usually the beauty of stuff, and I'm very grateful. But
Yeah.
something did happen, and this was amazing, and this is the newest thing I've got to share. It's been about a year and a half. I had a procedure, a medical procedure, and this blew me away. It even blew me away. I'm sitting on a gurney with my legs over to the side, and I'm in the prep room where they come and get you out of the waiting room, and they put your hat on, and you've got your robe on, your gown on, and you're in a little cubicle where I had a curtain behind me and a curtain beside me. And the tech was sitting to my right, looking at the computer. And I'm thinking, hustle bustle outside the curtain. They've got all kinds of people going in and out of surgery. I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if my VA record's in there, or if all my other tests from the other hospitals. I wonder if my East Coast medical stuff is in there. I'm going through this in my mind. And she spins around and says, yes. And I stopped for a moment and I went, yes. And she said, you're telepathic. I am too. And I heard you. And yes, it's all in there. And I was so floored. I was so floored. And it got really quick. It started happening really quick. She said, hold on. She was sitting on one of those stools where you just move your legs and you scoot around like doctors do. She scooted over to the edge and she looked to see who was going in, who's coming out, who's next. She's plotting it all. And she went like this for just a minute because I was starting to ask questions with my mouth. Like, oh my God, tell me your story. How did you hear me? Why am I hearing you? I wanted to blurt it out, but here we are. It felt like all of a sudden I got that feeling of we're in the sterile zone, so be sterile. Just, it was that military thing, I guess. She scooted back over and she reached out and I just grabbed her hand and I said, tell me your story. And she says, we've only got a little while. And as she's talking with her mouth, I am seeing she was from a war country. She graduated from high school early because her family uh, all paid her way to get her a good education. And for some reason, I'm thinking Serbia. And um, she went to nurses training. And through nurses training, she had great scores. And so she joined Doctors Without Borders. And how did you get here? I didn't even have to say it with my mouth. She showed me. And she told me, and this was so amazing because it's never happened like this before. And when she said you're telepathic, I thought, damn right I am, because I knew I could be, because I'm that way with animals and I'm that way with other
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what she said is after she got her degree and she joined Doctors Without Borders, she asked to come to the United States, and then she brought her whole family, and now they're all citizens and they're all living a decent life. But all of this is coming through like pictures, like I'm feeling her feelings. And she's watching, she's still on the computer taking notes. We're still contact through our hands. I am so floored that this has happened.
Wow.
And on the way, I thought for sure that I would see her on the way out. But once I got in the room, right before they put me to sleep, I got a message from her and I jumped up on the table and said, wait. and I told them there was a problem in the room, and they corrected it and then started the procedure. It came from her, and I never saw her again. When I came out, she wasn't there.
Hmm.
I didn't know her name, but I know it gives me it excited me so much, and it just set my mind on fire to where in a room now I reach out because I want to find them. And I know that we find each other. That's exactly what happened. She spun around and she said yes, just like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that was shocking. And I know because I've had it come in my head, but this was not just. This was like like a flashback, but it wasn't my life. It was hers. So, well, I don't
Maybe
know how to
that's
tell you.
her right
That is
there.
special. That is special, and it's those things that I celebrate every single day, and I'm probably going to
Absolutely.
celebrate every day down to my last moment on just those things. Yeah.
It's interesting when you were talking about the your hearing, um, and the chat kind of perked up. I know for a fact that when I was very little, I was in a restaurant with my mom, and I could hear everything everyone was saying around me. And when I brought that up to her, she kind of looked at me and said, "Okay, let me tell you a few things." And evidently, it ran to the family that at least she also had very good hearing, exceptional hearing,
Yeah.
unusual hearing.
Yeah.
And she told me that I have to learn how to manage it and not listen and not eavesdrop. And um, but the thing I never knew for sure, and still don't to this day, was I actually hearing their audio, or
Hmm.
was I hearing them on a telepathic level?
Yeah. Well, I gotta
And
say, you just never know when that happens, how you're going to act, because it goes to the depth of you. And if you're like me, you probably don't just hear it, you probably feel some of their emotion
yeah,
also.
and
Like
I
if
see
the
what
child is
I
in
see what they
distress
see.
and the parent is ignoring it, you feel that child in
I
distress.
see what they see too, and that's been really beneficial in being a
Yeah.
filmmaker because it helps. People will say to me, "How did you get that so right?" Because I didn't really describe it in detail that much to
Yeah.
you, and just well, when you were talking about it, it just I saw it.
Yeah.
So wow, Susan, what a great conversation. I know everybody enjoyed it. I certainly did. Um, we'll have to do this again, obviously.
I want to come back down. I can't wait to come
Yeah,
back.
well, if you do, it would be nice to do some of these other things that happen to you.
Yeah.
Um, and see what we might be able to do with that. So,
And
oh,
I did that
oh
thing
no,
with
I am too
Lisa,
late.
Simir, Lisa, the
Hmm.
one that you had her on. I did
Oh
hers.
yeah,
And I got
she's
to tell
terrific.
you, I told her a couple things I've never told anyone. And I think now that I've told it, maybe I can come out one of these days and tell you some more, because other things, you just stuff them down because you're just not ready to talk about it because it
Right.
involves other people. Yeah.
Well, so now I'm gonna go home and I want to watch that film by John Yost. So,
Yeah, you're going to love it.
well, a lot of these people they make films, and they set up the camera, they set up some bright lights, and they interview a person, and they put some crummy graphics to it, and they call it a. People will say, "Well, that was a great documentary," but I really saw in John's work something real special,
It
and so that
is.
really perked my interest. So, um,
Yeah.
and
And
again,
honey, watch that first 17 seconds and know that first 17 seconds is what brought me out of my chair onto the floor in the fetal position in tears.
yeah, no,
Just
yeah,
17 seconds. And then it was like, turn it off. I was so shocked. It's almost like I told myself, now you're going to have to tell it. You got to face it. Let's just do it. It starts now. That's what that first 17 seconds did.
and if you guys get a chance, go into Community, or as it's called now, Posts, and watch that little short film about our tribe coming together. Um, it should activate things in you that you may not even know were there. So because you'll say, how did they know that?
Yeah.
And with that,
Beautiful when those things happen. It's beautiful when those things.
yeah, no, it was it
Yeah.
was it was pure magic. Susan, we sure love you, and thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for doing your episode, and thank you, Earl Gray
Thanks,
Anderson,
Earl.
for putting
Thanks,
us in touch
Mary.
with this wonderful human being. And we will see you again real soon, I hope.
You bet. I'm right here.
Okay. You betcha.
You hadn't heard the last of me.
All right. All right.
Thanks. Team
Okay.
Jackrabbit.
Bunnies.
Bye.
Bye.